Hey, everybody, let's get right to it. All right, Devin Carter, surgery today, and he is going to be out for a significant part of the season. Torn labrum. Let me tell you something. This guy, Devin Carter, better be one heck of a player for Sacramento, or this is a really bad draft pick by the Kings and Monte McNair. I don't know how you can draft a guy who has a shoulder injury of this magnitude when you just traded for a guy who's 35 years old, who, let's face it, how many good years does he have left? And now your number one draft pick, who you were counting on to be a defensive stalwart and maybe help out offensively, won't even be reevaluated until 6 months from now. So best case scenario, if you're looking at this, is Carter's not available until at least after the All-Star break. And then what? I don't understand it. Again, this was a relatively weak draft. And I'll tell you something else. I don't go by Summer League too much. I really don't. But if Zach Edey ends up being a really good NBA player in a position which the Kings sorely need, yeah. Again, I can't predict the future. All right? But why would you draft a player unless you thought he was head and shoulders above everybody else at number 13 with a shoulder injury of this magnitude? Did the Kings not do their due diligence? How is it that the Kings did not know that the injury was of this severity? Explain that to me. I don't get it. I really don't. I remember when Michael Porter Jr. was coming out of the draft, and the Kings really liked him. They were very interested in him, but everybody knew about his back issues, pending surgeries. Like, it wasn't a mystery. Everyone knew. And the Kings were seriously considering drafting Michael Porter Jr. number 2 in the draft instead of Marvin Bagley. I know they should have drafted Luka, but we get that now. And they didn't draft him because they knew what his prognosis was, that this could be an ongoing issue for his career, surgery, everything else. All right? Why is it that the Kings drafted a player who had a torn labrum in a draft that wasn't that strong? You know? And listen, I understand that Edey got picked ahead of the Kings. I understand that. But there was some talk about the Kings moving up in the draft or potentially making a deal to get him. I'm well aware that he wasn't on the board at 13. I'm just saying there were players that the Kings were interested in, and they had some capital to work with to go out and get a player if they wanted to. That's the only thing I'm talking about. I know he went ahead of Sacramento. But what about Dalton Connect, right? A player that most people thought would be a very good pick at 13. Listen, it's always easy to go back in time. And maybe, all right, maybe Devin Carter ends up being a very good NBA player, and you look back at this year and go, no big deal. It was worth the wait. That could very well be the case. Okay? What I'm saying is he better be good. Okay? That's number one. And here's something else I'm saying. The Kings should have announced this when they made the pick, but they didn't announce it because they didn't know. They didn't know. All right? Monte McNair did not know. It was very apparent from his post-draft press conference that he was not aware of the severity of Carter's injury. The doctors messed up on this, or whomever. All right? Somebody messed up on this. I don't know who, but you can't tell me that they drafted a player at number 13, and then in a question about him not, and then Bonnie's saying he won't play in the California Classic, and a follow-up question came about, well, what about Summer League in Vegas? And he said, it's too early to say. We don't know yet. I'm paraphrasing. He didn't say it exactly like that, but I'm paraphrasing. All right? Again, I want to know why you drafted a player with a torn labrum. That's what I want to know. In a team that's built for right now, today, why did you draft a player with a torn labrum? Carter had a shoulder injury before the draft, okay? That was known. That was known. You're right. Monty said, according to this, quote, we will see if he can play Summer League. Next thing you know, he has a torn labrum. They messed up. They messed up. I'm not saying they messed up in terms of taking him. What I'm saying is they messed up on the prognosis of his shoulder. They didn't know. This is a bad look for the Kings. And I'll tell you right now, if Devin Carter ends up being a so-so player, you miss, and I don't want to hear about this, McLaughlin guy from Minnesota, all right, who barely played, who's in his 5th year. Like, Kings fans are talking about, oh, no problem, you got McLaughlin, and he's a really good defender. Really? He barely played in Minnesota. So you're going to count on a guy that barely played in Minnesota? Come on now. Incredible. Now, torn labrum is a serious injury, yes, but it can be completely surgically repaired to new. So it's not going to impact his full potential, all right? Said he wasted an opportunity to improve the team right now. I think he did too. But again, we may look back in this from a year in and go, boy, Devin Carter's really good. It was worth the wait. I mean, that could happen. All I'm saying is what's very apparent to me is the Kings messed up on the severity of a shoulder injury. They got it wrong. They got it wrong. Plain and simple. They got it wrong. I don't know what else to say. They got this wrong. By the way, we're going to be doing a show later at 8 o'clock tonight. Ryan and Sacktown will join me. We'll talk more about this. If you want to call the program, it's very easy to do. All right. Here's your Open Forum Thursday link. You got the QR code behind me as well. Either one will work, and you can get in on the program, and we can talk about this. It's not good. You know what? It's not good. It's not good when you draft a player, okay, and then your general manager is saying we don't know about Summer League yet when he's got a torn labrum. Unbelievable. Seriously. It's not the end of the world, all right? But your rookie, who you were praising about defense, and, tough kid and, everything else, all the accolades, and yet you're drafting a guy that can't even play until the earliest. I mean, I'm thinking the earliest is going to be after the All-Star break. That's the earliest. All right? Again, if he ends up being a good player, you may look at this and go, not a big deal. But he better be a good player, or this is a dreadful pick by the Kings. Dreadful. And don't tell me, I don't want to hear about this McLaughlin kid from Minnesota, like Kings fans. Oh, well, they got him. Let's stop it already, would you please? Could he be a player? Could he play? He could, yes. But, I mean, that's asking a lot. This is the Chet Holmgren story. No, it's not the Chet Holmgren story in any way, shape, or form. No, it's not. No, it's not. Chet Holmgren got hurt after the draft. He was perfectly healthy before the draft. He got hurt in a Seattle scrimmage and missed the whole year. Do not compare Devin Carter to Holmgren. Stop it already with that nonsense. Please. Let's get to Jay. Jay, welcome to the show. What's your take on this?
Oh, well, like I said earlier, Monty said, "Oh, we're gonna see about that. We're gonna meet with the doctors and see what they say," assuming that oh, he's just gonna be out for maybe a month or two or something like that. And next thing you know, he's having surgery on a torn labrum, and it's very evident that they did not know, because as to Bear's point in the comment, Davion is gone. They wouldn't have traded Davion that soon if
I
they thought
agree.
Devin was going
I
to be
agree.
there.
I totally agree. They would not have traded Davion Mitchell. They would have made another deal to give them flexibility to go out and get a player like DeMar DeRozan. But I'm with you 100%. There's no
Yeah,
way they
they
trade
would have.
Davion Mitchell if they, and again, they traded Mitchell before the draft. All right. But if they knew that Carter, who they were zeroing in on, had an injury of this magnitude, I don't think they would have done that.
No, they wouldn't have. And like you said, the McLaughlin, not really sure. Um, he's not very impressive. He's going to come in last 3 minutes before halftime, like one of those players that are,
Right.
you're going to put Malik Monk pretty much at the starting point guard if he comes off the bench.
He's in a 1-year contract, right?
Yeah,
And come on now. Now, could he play, get an opportunity? Maybe. Okay, but he's not Davion Mitchell. All right.
right. Someone who already knows the system, who's been here for 5 years or 4 years, whatever it was. You'd feel much more comfortable putting that player, and you know what you're getting with this
Yep.
core and how he fits on this team. We do, like Zakara says, we do have Keon Ellis as well, but I don't rely on that either.
No,
Keon's
you
doing
had Keon
great.
Ellis last year.
Yeah, and he's doing great. But
He's not the same type of defender as a Davion Mitchell. It's a different type of a defender.
yeah, he's definitely bigger. Apparently,
Yep.
he's 6'5".
Yep.
I did
Yep.
not know he was 6'5", so he can actually play 1 through 3 if you wanted to. But Keon is still early in his career. He's the first time he ever got real NBA play time was last season. So if Keon goes down, and we're looking at a 6-foot point
Yep.
guard and the new guy we just got to take that role on and play defense.
Let me
I'm
get to
not
this.
so worried.
Let me get to this real quick. Do you blame the Kings doctors or do you put the blame on Carter for hiding how bad his injury really was? I'm not going to blame anybody until I get the facts. I'm not going to blame the Kings doctors because you only have access to a player based on what the agent allows you to have access with. It's not like the Kings doctors were able to give him a complete overhaul, MRI, and everything else. So, I don't really blame the Kings doctors based on my background and being in situations leading up to the draft. And so I'm not ready to go out and blame the Kings doctors. As far as Carter blaming how bad his injury really was, maybe, or maybe he didn't know the severity of his injury.
That could be true too. It was during draft workouts, so it was a fairly
Yes.
new thing to him.
Sorry, excuse me. But
Yeah,
the reality is this is not good for the Sacramento Kings for the present, okay?
yeah,
And the
it's not.
immediate future. It's just not. There's just no
It's
other
not a
way.
deal breaker. I don't think it's a deal
No.
breaker, but it does take. I mean, we could have got someone else, and that's no disrespect to Devin Carter, and that's not to say he's going to be a terrible player. He could be, like you said, a great player, but right now we need bench depth. We need depth to
Yep.
really compete throughout a whole season and compete for the best seeding.
This
Depth
puts a
is.
lot of pressure on Monty McNair now. He's going to have to go out now
Well,
and
he
find
said.
that on-ball defender and that dog.
Well, that DeMar DeRozan trade, I mean, I'm sure that made up for a whole bunch of it for sure. I'm sure Vivek
But
was
he's
happy that.
not a defensive player.
I know, but anytime you land a star, that the Devin Carter, if we didn't do anything and we just found this out, imagine how worse that would be for
Yeah,
Monty.
great point.
Rather than, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, we need depth, and especially I think it's actually more of a priority to find that stretch five or that strong center rather than a guard at this point. I'm not really too concerned with
I'm not
finding
either.
that. We need to find someone who can come in and back up Sabonis.
Yep, I totally agree, 100%.
That's the guy we need.
I mean, I'm fully aware that they signed Alex Len, but I think Len's got a limited role. I know. I'm just, but I wanted to point that out for the fans that may not be as in tune with things as you are. I mean, he's on the roster, but I don't know if he's the answer there.
I know, and I told you, I imagine Sabonis goes down and Len is our starting 5. I would.
Well, if Sabonis goes down,
You put in Trey
you're a
Lyles.
non-playoff team.
Well, that too. So that's why we need to get. I think we would still be able, maybe not as highly projected without Sabonis, but I think if we had someone like a Bobby Portis or Aaron Gordon, similar type of player to take over that small 5, we could still be a play-in team.
I would love to get Bobby Portis, and I don't know if he's available from Milwaukee or not, but you're not going to get him for nothing.
That's true too. Very true.
All right, thanks,
Yeah.
buddy.
All right,
appreciate you. Take care. Again, my question is, where did the breakdown come? Was it Carter's agent? Was it Carter himself? I mean, obviously, they're not going to disclose this before the draft if they know that a player's got a serious injury. I mean, that just goes without saying. That's common sense. So I can't really blame the Kings doctors based on the background that I've had of being with an organization for as long as I was and leading up to the draft. Your doctor doesn't have carte blanche, okay, over a player, okay? Understand that. I just find it puzzling. This is a bad look for Monty McNair. He obviously did not know, based on his comments after the draft. He clearly did not know that Devin Carter had a torn labrum. He didn't know. Now, he knew that he had a shoulder injury, but it wasn't believed to be serious. Matter of fact, they downplayed it. And now he's got surgery and he's not even going to be evaluated again until January. Come on now. Come on. And then you trade Davion Mitchell before the draft, okay? And yes, that freed up some cap space and you were able to get DeMar DeRozan. That's fine and dandy, but you got a coach that his identity is defense, and we saw the trend of defense after the All-Star break when you didn't have Monk, when you didn't have Herter, when you didn't have Vezenkov, you didn't have your three-point shooting, and a lot of fans liked what they were seeing because the Kings were getting stops. And Davion Mitchell was a big part of that. Okay, he was. He had a significant role off the bench post All-Star break and played very well. And you drafted a player that was going to fill in that spot, be the dog, be that defensive guy, maybe even better than Mitchell. And now he's out for a significant portion of the season. Monty McNair did not know, plain and simple. I'd like to hear from Monty McNair. How is it they didn't know? Where did this go wrong? Did the agent mislead them? Did Carter mislead them? Where did it go? Where did the breakdown come from? Now, if Carter ends up being a good player, you'll just go, okay, you got past it. It's okay. Unbelievable. So there is no penalty for this. I know Patrick said if the Kings didn't know, could they penalize Carter's team somehow and the NBA office get involved? No, I don't think so. No. Oh, well, it is what it is. It is what it is. Let's get to Dirk right here on If You Don't Like That. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Most of the things I was going to say, you've already said. Don't tell me this, don't tell me that. What I will say is Davion Mitchell was gone no matter what. Whether you traded him to Toronto, that could have potentially been Chris Duarte. But we still needed that $5 million, most likely if we want to pick up another free agent. So he was either going to Toronto or he was going, to San Antonio. But you were losing Davion Mitchell no matter what, because the dollars don't add up regardless.
Okay, but who's to say you couldn't have traded another player not named Davion Mitchell? Kevin Huerter wants out. Kevin Huerter's been looking to get a trade. You may have been able to make another move, but I don't know that. I'm just saying maybe.
Who's saying that? I'm saying that because I looked at the numbers, Grant. There isn't any money because I've been trying to figure out how we're getting that next piece, and the math doesn't math. So that I looked into it. Like I looked at the numbers, the current contract. Duarte is the only guy we got, but regardless,
I get you. I understand where you're coming from, but The fact is, you drafted a player who was going to come in and fill the role of Davion Mitchell and maybe do it even better, and you were counting on that player to step in and provide that role, and now that player is going to be unavailable for most of the season.
It's disappointing. Okay, no, I'm not going to pretend like it's not, but I don't think it's going to be as impactful in the long term. I don't think the Kings are drafting best player available. When you look at the new contract situation, when you draft the best player, that puts you in the best position because you have long-term control over that guy.
Yep.
And if he pans out, which if you feel real strongly like, no, this guy has all the attributes that can develop into a player in the NBA, you get that guy. Injury or not, it's in his non-shooting shoulder, by the way, right? Pretty sure I saw that bandage on the left hand.
But I don't even think that's an issue, whether it's a shooting shoulder or not, because they said he's going to make a complete recovery and that his shoulder will be 100% good as new. So I don't think it even matters.
I've played basketball, I've pitched in baseball.
Yep.
If you give me a choice between my primary shoulder and the off, I'll take the off shoulder, right? Because you still have to relearn how to use that new shoulder.
I understand. And the good news is if it's your off shoulder, your rehab can begin a little bit quicker, even doing things as simple as free throws and things of that nature. So, yes, I understand your point, and it's spot on.
So last thought. Like, again, I've been researching McLaughlin's defense, and he's a fan favorite in Minnesota. We said this guy isn't getting minutes, but, if you're the third point guard on your team behind one of the premier point guards and a seasoned veteran, it's understandable you don't get minutes when your team is trying to compete for a championship right there. So I don't think we're really going to.
I'm only going by stats and everything else. I mean, right. I'm not getting too excited about this individual stepping in and automatically just being part of the rotation. I'll believe it when I see it.
What I've seen so far, I've been looking at highlights. He gives me a little Jose Cal. No. What's the guy on the Pelicans? I'm blanking. That little small point guard who hides and gets steals.
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, I could take you without even knowing what you do and probably put a good highlight reel together if I had you in a gym and cut plays up. So again, I'm not going to build up a guy that doesn't deserve to be built up. I'm not going to do it. All right. He just does not deserve to be built up based on what his NBA pedigree is in his first 4 to 5 years of being in the league. Now, there are players that had been caught in a numbers game who then all of a sudden go to a different situation with a different coach and get a door that opens up for them and they take advantage of it. I've seen it on many occasions, but I'm going to wait until I see it with this player before I build him up.
No worries. And I don't want to formulate strong opinions until I do my own research. Here's what I'll summarize from the little I've done so far. Take it for what it's worth. The guy doesn't turn the ball over a ton. He can somewhat run the offense and penetrate, and he plays strong defense. On this team, you have multiple playmakers. You have Fox, you have Monk, you have DeRozan, who also is a playmaker, seeing his footage. You're not going to feel this as much as you think. The downside is you don't get a year of development from Carter. So that's the worst part. I think we'll be fine this year. Moving forward, hopefully Carter doesn't get set back too much. And I'll talk to you later.
Hey, good call. Good information. Yeah. Appreciate you. Thank you. Good stuff. I mean, he definitely has his information. And I like that. He's done his research, and that's fine. But so, okay, then let me go a step further. Let's say that McLaughlin, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, he hasn't played enough for me to even know how to pronounce his name. Let's say that he is everything that Dirk just said, okay? And let's say he's part of Mike Brown's rotation and is playing very well. Then what happens when Devin Carter gets the go-ahead to be on the court playing? Then what happens? What happens? Right? I mean, if McLaughlin is the player that Dirk says, and again, he may be, I'm going to play the other side of the fence here, but let's say that I'm wrong and Dirk is right. Then what? Then you drafted a player you don't need? Well, let's just call it the way it is. So, you know what? Herter did not come out and say he wanted to be traded. That's my opinion. No one else's. Just based on everything that's happened last year, knowing his background. He didn't come out and say he wanted to be traded. I misspoke when I said that. I'm thinking that he would like to be traded. He didn't say he would like to be traded. I'm saying that. I think he would prefer to be traded. That's what I'm saying. All right? That's where we're at. So I said that wrong. I believe he wants to be traded. He didn't say he wants to be traded. All right? All right. Not sure why we're making Devin Carter's injury a big deal. Mitchell was not even playing before Monk's injury. Keon Ellis and Monk can pick up the minutes till Carter is healthy. Well, I don't know if you watched the team play or not last year. I really don't. Did you watch the team play last year? Did you watch Davion Mitchell in the final 25 games of the season? Or did you discount that like as if those games didn't matter? Again, I'm not saying Davion Mitchell is the savior to the bench and you couldn't afford to lose him, but come on now. Come on. All right? We'll see. Time will tell. You know, I'm with Dirk. It's not all doom and gloom. We're talking about a 13th overall pick in a draft that wasn't considered that strong. But I just think this is a bad look for the Sacramento Kings front office. Just a bad look. You draft a player that's got a torn labrum. I'm sorry. It's not a good look. It's not a good look. And maybe a year from now, I'm doing this show and talking about, gee, hey, boy, Carter was really good in the final month of the season, and the Kings made the playoffs, and wow, this kid's really going to be good, and blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking for a rookie who is not going to be on the court until, in all likelihood, post All-Star break, with no NBA experience, I'm thinking this is a wasted season for him. All right? I don't know. You know? Anita's question, should there have been more info about Carter's injury, seems odd. You know, as far as an ACL tear before the draft as compared to a labrum, from what I understand, Carter was still going through his workouts and everything. It's a good question. It's a good question. I don't know. What I will say is what I've said repeatedly since I started doing this show at 5 o'clock Pacific. All right? Is Monte McNair and the Sacramento Kings clearly, I don't think this can be said as a reach or as an opinion. I think it's fact. They did not know the severity of Carter's injury. That's apparent based on what Monte McNair said post-draft press conference. They did not know. They knew he had a shoulder injury. They knew his shoulder had been injured. They did not know to this magnitude. They didn't know. All right? They didn't know. All right. If you want to get in on the program, you got the QR code above my shoulder. You've got the link right here that I'm posting on the screen. Don't forget that Ryan is going to be joining me at 8 o'clock. We're going to be talking a lot more about this, okay? All I'm saying right now is do not count on Carter to have a meaningful rookie season. And now, Monte McNair, in his next press conference, to me, it's going to be very interesting what he says. He ought to just be honest. And he, you know, there's no reason to think that he won't be. I think Monte McNair's done a very good job. I have never met the man, but I have a lot of respect for him just based on seeing how he goes about his job and what he does. And the best thing that Monte McNair can do right now is to come out and say, we did not realize that he had a torn labrum. And he could even say, even if we did, we may have taken him anyway. We probably would have taken him because we really like him. He's going to make a complete recovery. Yes, it's a setback, but we're looking at long term. We're not looking at short term. I mean, he'll get through it, but he needs to say, we did not know. Don't beat around the bush on that one. So it's not the end of the world, but it looks bad for the Kings. It looks bad for the Kings. And was Carter's agent and were they being deceitful? Because that's a bad way to start your NBA career if you've got a player who's being deceitful about his injury. And I understand it's a business and I get all of that. But basically you're trying to screw over a team that wants to invest in you before you even get started. It's not the best look. It's not the best. It's not the best. So Adam says, do you think this means that we keep Herter until the trade deadline? Very well, good. It's a great question. It's a great question. Could very well mean that now. So, because the one thing you do lose with DeRozan, you lose 3-point shooting. I mean, the numbers don't lie. Yes, I think the Kings upgraded their roster, but there are some issues. Everybody's making it seem like the Kings got, a great player. They got a good player. All right. They got a good player. He's 35 years old. Again, defense is going to be an issue. Fitting in with what the Kings do. I mean, I want to see it all work. I think he's a good player. I would have made the trade. I'm not saying I would not have made the trade. I would have made the deal. Okay. I would have done the same thing. But I'm not grading it like an A+ or an A like everyone else is. I'm just not. So, and I keep saying this. It's the 11th of July? This is not the finished roster that we're going to see on the floor in October. So, we'll see. All right. Anybody going to the celebrity golf tournament in Lake Tahoe? That was always my favorite time of the year to go up there. Beautiful. Love going up there to Lake Tahoe to cover that event. Anybody going up there this weekend? I've always thought that Wednesday and Thursday, from a fan's perspective, are the best days to be up there. So, loved it. I miss it. Probably the thing that I miss almost as much as anything was being up there every year and doing my show from the driving range. I even did the Jim Rome show live from the driving range one day, and it was phenomenal. Boy, I had some great guests that day when I hosted and filled in for Romy several years ago up at beautiful Lake Tahoe. Then next week, we get into the Open at Royal Troon. So I'm looking forward to watching that. I've been watching a lot of Wimbledon this year. Been really enjoying it. I couldn't even pronounce the ladies that were playing yesterday, but boy, oh boy, it was one of the best matches I've ever seen. The Italian woman against the Croatian woman. What a great match. Went all the way to a tiebreaker, and it was, I think, 10-8 was the score of the tiebreaker. Both players had match points on their serve and couldn't close it out until the Italian lady won. What a great match. I was watching that match, and I was just like, and forgive me for not being able to remember their names. I was just like, I'm not turning this off until it's over. That was a great match. That's one of the best matches that I've watched in a long time. And it just goes to show you, me personally, I couldn't have picked either of those women out of a lineup. Didn't know anything about them. Had never heard of them before because I don't really follow tennis like I used to. And yet I was captivated, and I was not going to turn off my TV until the match was over. It was great. It was absolutely phenomenal. So anyway, we have other things going on besides basketball, but if you want to get in on the Devin Carter talk, again, Rhino is going to be on with me at 8:00, and we will talk more about that. All right? Absolutely. Am I up, Napes, for having a watch party at Bennett's this year? Yes, we'll do it. When I come into Sacktown during the basketball season, we'll have a watch party. I'll do it on a road game. All right. That way, people that would ordinarily go to the game, they can be with me and you and everyone else. All right. Said playing Edgewood the week after the celeb tournament is a fun time. All the scaffolding still up. Yep, absolutely. Have I gone back to Augusta? No, it was a one-time deal. I doubt I'll ever be back there again. It's one of the real highlights of my sports life, being there. It's phenomenal. All right. The Kings did worse drafting George Papagiannis with the 13th pick in 2016. Yes, they did. You know, he's playing very well right now. He's going to be in the Olympics. He was outstanding. Did you watch any of the game and how well he played against Croatia in the qualifying game last week? He was tremendous. He had like what, 19 points, 13 rebounds, a couple of blocks. But yes, it was a bad pick. Yes, it was. All right, again, if you want to get in on the program, easy to do. All you have to do is hit the link, the QR code, and we'll get you right on. All right? Let's get to John. What's up, John? How are you today?
I'm doing all right. Grant, can you hear me?
Yes, you know, you always say, can you hear me? If I can't hear you, I will tell you that I can't hear you, okay?
Well, that's kind of why I say howdy, Grant, and then you'll usually respond. I never know. I've got a new device sometimes, and I'm just not sure if it's working.
You're a beauty.
Hey,
How
I love you here.
How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, Grant. Oh, hey, you like my shirt? I didn't realize I was wearing this.
Oh, yeah. I love it. I love it.
I got you. This old rag, you know.
I like it.
But hey, I rolled the sleeves up to my neck, and they just came right off. That's what happens sometimes.
Yeah, I love it.
Hey, man, this whole thing about the torn labrum and everything, I'm sure that Monty, you know, they knew it was a labrum injury. I'm sure they didn't know the severity, but I'm sure they knew it wasn't a rotator cuff or something like that, which would be substantially more troublesome. You know, they're harder to come back from, and it takes longer.
I disagree with you. I don't think they knew.
Man, I don't know. They had to know something. To me, it seems like they knew there was a shoulder injury, but, you know, I tore my ACL. And originally the doctor said, oh, I think you sprained your MCL and you sprained your ACL. And they put me through some, you know, different sorts of exercises, regimented exercises. And after 2 or 3 months, my knee started giving out again. I'm like, what the hell's going on? I went back and they finally gave me an MRI. And I know they got an MRI now. This is nearly 10 years ago I tore my ACL. So, and I know that NBA has got all the doctors and everything. And Pete Youngman was actually one of the guys who knew my surgeon, and I talked to Pete about it, and it's turned out the knee that I hurt now, I forget which one I hurt almost.
I understand, but John, let's talk about this. Let's not talk about your injury from 10 years ago, because no disrespect, but it has nothing. No disrespect to you, but it has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. The reality is that the Kings did not know the severity of his injury. That is very clear from Monty McNair's press conference, okay? That is a bad look for a professional basketball team, and there has to be a reason why they didn't know. Was his agent covering it up? Was Devin Carter covering it up? Why is it that the Sacramento Kings did not know the severity of his injury? All right? That's where we're dealing with here.
Yeah, the only reason I was saying it was similar to mine is because it was somewhat misdiagnosed originally. And I don't know, I'm sure nobody was trying to cover it up, and I wouldn't look for something like that. But then they did get it taken care of.
I disagree with you. I believe the injury was covered up. I'm sorry. I don't think you would have a torn
labrum. Man, I hope.
I think it was covered up by somebody. It certainly wasn't the Kings.
Yeah.
I don't blame the Kings doctors because they weren't able to get their full hands on him. This has got to be looked into.
You know, I agree with you there 100%. I believe it was covered up. Hey, Monty did not know about it, obviously, or he probably would not have taken him unless, like you said earlier, they were so happy with his workout and everything else he did, they were going to take him anyways. I think they were glad that it wasn't a rotator cuff, but they still didn't know the severity of it. Yep. And another thing, I think that Davion Mitchell was coveted by a lot more teams than we realize. I think a lot of other teams were going to go after Davion Mitchell.
Maybe.
And I'm not sure it would have been good monetarily for the Kings to keep Mitchell with so many other teams
Yep.
wanting him. Because, hey, he didn't get all the run that he perhaps could have if Ellis didn't come along. Obviously, Fox is our guy. You know, Fox is getting 30, 35 minutes. That's all there is to it. And Davion's backing him up and backing up, you know, a little bit of the shooting guard. And a good ball, you know, on-ball defender and everything like that, but a little shorter. It's just hard to tell. It's too easy, man. I hope it was all an accident, because I don't, you know, I hate to think that people are really trying to pull the wool over our eyes or anybody's eyes. I wouldn't want to do that to anybody else, nor would I want anybody to do that to me. So that's just kind of where I stand on it.
We need to find out. We need more information on this. I think that the fans deserve more information on this, and I think the Kings deserve more information on this. We need to find out how this could have possibly happened. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I do agree with you there. Hey, Dirk might look that up. That guy had a heck of a lot of, he looked up a lot of stuff, and he's only half done. So, hey, that was a great call by him. Grant, hopefully I can make your show this evening with Ryan.
Yep.
Thank you, Grant. Have a great one. Keep it up.
Good hearing from you, John, as always. Yeah, Dirk says from the T-Wolves subreddit on him leaving, no one has a bad word to say about JM. Fans love him. I believe that. I believe fans do love him. All I'm saying is I go by what he's done in his NBA career. Says brings energy and 100%, 110% effort every night, causes the opposing team to make bad turnovers. When he's in the game, Dirk, how come he had so many DMPs? Answer that for me. If he's so good, how come Coach Finch couldn't find a couple minutes for him every night? How come he had so many DNPs? Come on. Again, I'm not saying that the guy can't play, and I'm not saying that he's everything you're saying to me, I believe. I believe. What I'm saying is you can't just count on him to come from a team where he was barely playing into a team of this magnitude that's already pretty good, a team that won 46 games last year, and he's just going to automatically be part of the rotation because now all of a sudden Devin Carter's out. I'm not ready to go there yet. All right, he wasn't part of Minnesota's rotation for the most part. And what's the reason for that? Because they had a championship caliber team? Well, Minnesota really wasn't that much better than Sacramento. That's what I'm saying. You know? Lydia, where have you been, Lydia? Where have you been? Devin will be available when next season starts, Lydia. He will not be available when this season starts. I know you're joining us late, so I'll fill you in. He had surgery today, Lydia, and he is not even going to be evaluated until January. Okay? He has a torn labrum that was surgically repaired today. So he won't be ready to start this season. He'll be ready to start next season, hopefully. Hopefully, he'll be fine. Again, the good news, Lydia, and everyone else that may have joined a little late, is that they expect him to make a complete, full recovery. Like the prognosis is very good. All right? Prognosis is very good. So, again, we keep talking about when you draft a player, all right? You have the information in front of you that you were able to get at the Chicago Combine, where apparently he was fine then. You have information based on what the agent is willing to give you. You don't have carte blanche when you draft a player to give him a complete physical and, you know, do this and do that. You don't have that ability, okay? Just don't. It's not the way it works, all right? You know, I'm not going to relax with the Carter situation, all right? Thank God you're not the Kings GM, would have drafted Bagley. Relax, would you please? No, I'm not going to relax, all right? This is a bad look for the Sacramento Kings. I'm not going to relax. You drafted a player that is going to be out until after the All-Star break at the earliest, all right? No, I'm not going to relax. This is a bad situation. It's bad for the league and it's bad for the Kings. Okay? Who covered this up? Monty McNair didn't know. Who? Is it the agent? Is it Carter? No, I'm not going to relax. All right, he didn't just hurt his labrum in the past couple of days. It's a bad situation. Bad situation. And again, as I said, you obviously only hear what you want to hear. I said at the beginning of my show today that it may be a moot point, that a year from now, we may be saying not a big deal. When he got onto the court this past season, you can see that he can play. He's going to be part of the plans moving forward, and everything's fine and dandy. That's a scenario that could quite possibly play out. Could very well happen. And it better happen for the Kings. All right? It better happen for the Kings. Devin Carter may end up being a really good player in the NBA, but we're not going to know probably until at least next year. All right? Period. This is a situation that should not have happened. It should have been disclosed. They should have had more information. And I think the league as a whole needs to do a better job of players that have injuries that it needs to be disclosed. It's a big-time, multi-billion-dollar business we're talking about. All right? We'll see what happens. I don't have a crystal ball. And you're right, Lydia. It is sad that this has happened. You're 100% correct, Lydia. You're absolutely spot on. It is a sad situation. And I'm not ready to say it's a wasted pick because that would be stupid. All right? I'm not ready to say that, gee, you know, the Kings made a big mistake. I'm not. We don't know that yet. But what I'm saying is this should not have happened. Your player should not be drafted, and then shortly thereafter, it's revealed that he has a torn labrum. I mean, Monty McNair knew he had a shoulder injury. Knew it. But he did not realize that he was going to, he thought he might even be able to play in Summer League. Anyway. All right, Baki said, I'm late on the show. Champ, what happened? Devin Carter, the Kings' top draft pick, had shoulder surgery today. He has a torn labrum, and he's going to miss a significant portion of the season. Won't even be evaluated until January. So we're thinking at the earliest post All-Star break. Torn labrum. Generally, we're talking 6 to 8 months. So you do the math. So what I'm saying, Baki, and what I've been saying is, how does something like this happen? I'm not blaming the Kings doctors because they didn't have carte blanche on the kid. Who deceived the NBA draft order and the Kings by not disclosing a torn labrum? Now, maybe they didn't know he had a torn labrum because they hadn't done the medical evaluation on him, but he knew he was hurt. It's kind of fishy to me. That's what I'm saying. Don't forget, coming up at 8 o'clock, Rhino and Sacktown will join me, and we will be talking a lot more about this. All right? We'll be talking a lot more about this coming up at 8 o'clock tonight. All right? 8 o'clock tonight. All right. I'll be back. Thanks for the calls, all the messages. And again, right here, do I really have to answer this? If I were the mayor of Sacramento, what would I do to make Sacramento better? How much time do you have? See you at 8 o'clock.